Hello everyone, Peter Gifford here, and this is the Esoteric Order of Gamers. Welcome! Today we're going to look at the Initiative, or the scrubbed out, something behind it, Initiative. It's by Corey Konieczka from Unexpected Games. This is the third Unexpected Games game that I'm covering. And this is the first one they released back in 2021. Oh, that was a rough year. Anyway, this is a really interesting game, and I think it's great to see that these Unexpected Games are living up to the name of the company, because the three I've all covered have been interesting and fun. I've enjoyed them all in different ways, and this one I particularly enjoy. But let me tell you all about it. I'm going to show you basically how it plays, and then I'm going to give you my thoughts on the game. But before we get into that, let me tell you that I've done a rules and reference for this game, of course. Now, I must give you a little warning about this sheet. It's got some rules on it that aren't revealed to you right at the start of the game. They come a little bit later through this cooperative campaign. So if you want complete surprises and you don't want anything to be given away, don't download and look at this first. Wait until those extra rules are revealed, and then you can use the summary, confident in the fact that you're not getting anything spoiled. So that's the sheet, and this is the game, the Initiative. Let's check it out. Now, the Initiative is a cooperative game for 1 to 4 players, and it's got a little story, and the story comes in comic book form. It's a story about teenagers in the 90s, a little group of teenagers in the 90s, and it's got this lovely artwork here, and they discover a game called The Key, this mysterious board game, and as they're playing it, weird things start to happen and they start discovering information, and who knows where it's all going to go. I don't know myself, because I've only played about 7 games so far, so things have changed and I'm working through the campaign, and but I don't know where it's going. I don't know what the final revelations are going to be, but I am enjoying it a lot. And the reason is that you have here short games mixed with some code breaking and fun puzzles and a little story, and it all comes together really nicely. And I'm probably getting right onto my thoughts before I tell you how to play the game, aren't I? Getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how to play the game. Well, the key to this game are missions, and there's a whole pack of these. You can see quite a lot, and they're linked into a campaign story, as I said, using this comic book thing. This has only got about 3 pages of rules on it. The rest is the comic book, and it's got a number of chapters. On the back here there's a chapter tracker and a campaign log, and it says 14 missions, but there's certainly more than 14 cards here, so I don't know quite how that works. But as you go through, you check them off as you play them, and it directs you to look at pages from the comic book which you read, and that updates the story as you go through, and you learn various secrets and things as you go. Now, puzzle solving, I hear you ask. Well, the puzzles are, you get this mission card and you set up a board that you're going to play on, and then you put the card into this fantastic little thing, which is this mysterious kind of device, which reminds me of those things that you had in the game shows. They're lifting the things to show the letters underneath, and you're trying to get a phrase and stuff like that. It's a bit of that. Sometimes you're trying to get a phrase, sometimes you're trying to get a numeric code. It varies depending on the particular scenario. But the clever thing is that you have these little windows underneath, and I'm not going to lift them because it'll give it away, but you can lift them up and the solution to the puzzle is hidden under them. So as you reveal these clues, these little things are lifted up and you get more insight into the answer to the particular puzzle. How do you get clues, I hear you ask? Well, you get clues by playing on this board here. And this is a double-sided board. It's got different configurations on each one. On the mission card, it tells you how to set these up. And you do that usually by randomly putting face down a whole number of these little clue tokens. Now, these clue tokens usually have symbols on them which may match what's on the mission card, and if you manage to get that clue symbol, if you gather it in the game's parlance, you can reveal that and you can get closer to solving the mystery. The players playing the game each have a character each. They've got a little standee, they've got a character, and the character is the character of the teenager who is in the comic book, but they also have a sort of avatar type character as well who's got a special ability. You start on the starting place of the board, and then you travel through and try and get clues and things like that. How do you do that? I hear you ask. Well, you have a hand of cards and you get a number of these cards in your hand, and when it's your turn, you can play them on any number of the actions here. So I've got a discard pile for discards here, but these are the main actions: run, gather, intel, and regroup. And to activate one of these actions on your turn, you just get a card and you play it on that particular action. However, there's a trick. When you play a card, it's got to be higher than any card that's been played on that action before. Very, very simple thing, but a lot of strategy there, because obviously if you play a 1 straight away on a run card, that's fine. But if the other person only has a minimum of, say, a 10 card, they have to play that, and all the number of times you can play that action is just drastically reduced because you've jumped right up ahead. And the next person has to play a card which is higher than 10, which is getting very difficult. Now, you can do a regroup card to get rid of the cards on an action and put them in the discard pile, thereby resetting the options for that action. So it's very strategic, thinking about when you're going to play the card and which card you're going to play and when is the right time to play it. Really, really simple, but works really nicely. So let's have a look at these actions. You have run, which is move up to 3 rooms on the board. You've got intel, which allows you to choose any room on the board and reveal up to 2 clue tokens in it. So you can turn them face up and see what they are. Now, in this case, we have a symbol which may or may not match the mission card. If it doesn't match anything on the mission card, you can just discard it and get it off the board. And then there are other fancy things like traps and stuff, but we'll get to that in a moment. Now, if you actually move into the room where there's a revealed token, you can do gather and collect up to 2 clue tokens from that room. Now, if they're symbols that actually match ones on the mission card, that means you can reveal them on here and get closer towards finding out what your solution is. And then finally, as I mentioned, there's regroup, which allows you to refresh one of these action cards. You can also use the action on your own character card, which can be very, very handy indeed. Now, there are traps for the unwary in rooms as well under those clue tokens. So you could get a security camera, which makes you discard a card from the top of the deck. You could get gas, which means you have to discard a random card from your hand. You can get counter intel tokens, which means you take the counter and you put it on the matching action, and that means that you cannot use that action at all until you do a regroup action and get rid of the token. As you go through the campaign, advanced clue tokens will be revealed that do different things, and also some different traps and other features as well. And some other things happen that I'm not going to tell you about because they're revealed as you go through the campaign. And that's basically it. It's unbelievably simple. And it's fast too. The games play very quickly. You can play a whole bunch of them in an evening. So you might immediately think, gee, this seems very simple. There's not much to it at all. But it's actually very, very entertaining. I'm not someone who enjoys puzzles and codes and wordplay and stuff like that. Never been something for me. I love games, but I don't like puzzles. So when I went into playing this game, I thought, oh, this is really not going to be for me. But then I was surprised to learn that I really enjoyed it. And that's because I think the difficulty of the puzzles walk that fine line just perfectly. I mean, this game is for 8 ages and up, so it's not super, super hard. But that's great because I'd really hate really super, super hard puzzles. They're just hard enough to be challenging and just easy enough to give you that satisfaction of beating them and getting on to the next thing. Now, I don't know if it's going to ramp up a lot at the end of the game, but at the moment the difficulty level is just high enough. We haven't lost any games we've played so far, but they've all been entertaining. And the other thing is, it isn't just about solving that particular puzzle for that particular game. There are other things that sort of carry on between games as you go through the campaign. And as you go through, you'll discover secret cards, and these sort of keep a continuity going through the campaign because they give you clues on how to solve particular puzzles and all kinds of little tricks and things that I don't want to give away, but are quite fun. As you go through the campaign, you'll collect all these cards and keep them, and you can refer back to them. And this whole sense of you gathering knowledge and getting better at solving the puzzles grows as you work your way through the games in the campaign. I mean, as far as I can tell, this isn't a world-changing storyline. It's a very simple comic, and at one point there was some dramatic plot point coming up, and when it actually happened, I went, oh, is that all there is? But then again, as I said, this is also for younger players. It's not trying to change the world with its storyline, as far as I can tell. Though who knows, there may be a nuclear war at the end, I don't know. But it does feel like it's quite a light story, It feels a little bit meta because it's talking about the fact that they've got this mysterious board game. So I'm excited to see where it goes. It's fun and it's engaging. As for the gameplay itself, you might think that just walking around, picking up clues and playing cards onto these actions doesn't sound very engaging, but strangely it is. Just the little puzzle of playing a card that has to be a higher number than the one before. Such a simple mechanic, but it brings in all kinds of strategy about when you have to play a card and when the order of discovering and picking up clues is important, and working out the kind of movement puzzle of where to go first and which direction to go around in the board, using your special actions, all that kind of thing. Now, the tension in all this is that you do have a time limit to solve a game. When the resource deck runs out, you shuffle all the discards and form a new deck, but you also add in 4 time cards, and you're now in peril. And that means that you flip the discard pile card to the in peril side. Now, everybody gets to keep playing the game, but those time cards are going to pop up. And when they do, you must immediately discard the time card, and if you want, you can draw a card to replace it. If there are ever 3 time cards in the discard pile, you lose the game. And one of those time cards has got 2 time symbols on it as well, so that's a particularly dangerous one. So as soon as those time cards start coming out, you know you're running out of time. Yet again, a very, very simple mechanic, but it really puts a lot of tension into the end game. You feel like you're running out of cards and running out of options. It's time to solve the code. You've got to do it. Sometimes you might have to take a guess at it, but you've got to get the exact right answer, so you've got to be careful. You might be working out a mathematical progression or something, so if you're no good at that kind of puzzle, you might be in trouble. There's limited time, and that adds a lovely amount of tension to each game. So I was extremely pleasantly surprised by the Initiative. I mean, it's cooperative, which is not my favorite genre at all. I prefer competitive games, but I felt a lovely sense of cooperation with the other player that I was playing with. I was just playing 2-player, and we've enjoyed every single game. The rules seem really simple, so I thought that'd be a problem, but actually the simplicity is a real selling point here, because you can go through a few games in one sitting, which is a lot of fun, and there's no complex rules to stick in your head. It gets a little bit more complicated later on as extra rules get added, but there's nothing that's overwhelming whatsoever. And finally, I wasn't into codes and puzzles at all, and this game is all about codes and puzzles, and yet for some reason Corey Konieczka has made this very entertaining despite that. Or because of that, he's just very cleverly picked the right puzzles, the kind of puzzles that are engaging but not too frustrating. The Initiative is very different from anything I've got on my shelf, and I'm really glad I've got it and I'm playing it. I'm very much looking forward to seeing how the campaign turns out. I'm going to keep going at it, and we'll see what happens at the end of this comic book. And then I assume there'll be still lots of games left, because as I said, there's a big pile of missions here. So maybe after you get to the end of the campaign, there are still lots of ones to play. I'm not sure. But it's certainly entertaining, and I highly recommend it. There you go, folks. A very short review, but then again, it's a very simple game, but a lot of fun. I hope you've enjoyed watching this review. Please hit subscribe if you haven't already. Hit all notifications as well, that bell icon when you do so. And check out the website at orderofgamers.com. All my social media channels too are always busy. I will see you next time. Thank you very much for watching. Bye for now.